2015 NBA season, 3 sa 5 teams sa NBA Central Division ang nakapasok sa playoffs. Naglaro sa playoffs ang Milwaukee Bucks, Chicago Bulls, habang ang division winners naman na Cleveland Cavaliers umabot hanggang sa NBA Finals. Ang tanong, maulit kaya ang nangyari sa mga Central Division teams ngayong 2016 NBA season? Para pag-usapan yan, makakasama natin ngayong gabi si Sir Enzo Flojo.
Sir Enzo, the hoop nut Flojo.
Napatandaan niyo naman ako.
Napakasipag nitong si Sir Enzo. Overtime kanina. First overtime game.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Sir
overtime.
Enzo. Now we talk about the Central Division.
Sir Enzo, okay, punta mo tayo sa top contender, ang Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes.
Si Tristan Thompson, nag-sign na ba?
Well, based on what I read just today, parang hindi pa, nothing confirmed yet for Tristan Thompson. I know there's an $80 million 5-year deal on the table for him right now from the Cleveland Cavaliers, but hindi pa siya nagsasign, and that's a big development. If he signs with Cleveland, that really cements their status as maybe one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league. But if he goes elsewhere, if they lose Tristan Thompson, that's going to leave them with a relatively thin front line, and that might affect their chances to repeat
How
what they
about
did last year.
Mo Williams, their new addition.
Mo Williams is their biggest free agent or off-season signing. No? What he gives Cleveland is a scorer, potentially off the bench, someone who can complement maybe J.R. Smith or Iman Shumpert. So that's a good thing for Cleveland. But does he make them really that much better? I don't think so. If they go up against, let's say, the Golden State Warriors again in the finals, or maybe the Rockets, or the Clippers even, or the Spurs, I think Cleveland medyo dehado pa rin against any of those teams. And Mo Williams is not the kind of player that will really move the needle that much for this team.
But then, of course, they got him because Kyrie Irving will not be able to start the season because of a knee injury. Ngayon, Enzo, maraming mga GMs around the NBA ang nagsasabing Cleveland has a good chance of winning their first ever NBA championship. Do you agree with this?
Good chance, yes. If I'm going to rank maybe the top 5 teams, definitely Cleveland will be in that conversation among the top 5. Will they be my hands-down favorites, bar none? I don't think so. I think the Golden State Warriors, because they got every important player that they needed to sign, they signed them. I think the Warriors are still going to be the odds-on favorites to repeat as champions. And of course, I'm judging Spurs, Clippers. But the Cavs are definitely going to be a threat. Are they the best team in the East? Yes, I think so. But the best team in the East might not, be a favorites going into the finals against the top 3 or 4 teams on the other side, or the Western Conference.
Okay, let's go to the nearest contender to them, the Chicago Bulls. How are they with Fred Hoiberg as the newest coach?
Well, for those who are watching the preseason games, medyo iba yung balasa ng players ni Fred Hoiberg. The coach whom he replaced, si Coach Tom Thibodeau, was known for binababad na yung players na about 40+ minutes per ball game or close to that. And it seems like Fred Hoiberg has a bit of a different mindset going into the season. He'll probably spread the wealth a little bit more. We'll probably see a lot more movement in the plays of the Chicago Bulls. Ang sinasabi ng maraming tao, someone like Nikola Mirotic will probably be used a lot more this season compared to last year. So that's what we will probably expect from the Bulls this season. But that might not be enough for them to topple the Cavaliers in the East or even in this particular division. I think the Bulls are the hands-down favorites to be the second best team in the Central Division, but I think they're still one level or one notch lower than the Cavaliers.
Enzo, ano naman ang komento mo sa balita na sinabi ni Jimmy Butler na hindi siya believe sa work ethic nitong si Derrick Rose na milanas na naman dahil na-fracture ang kanyang
Facial
orbital
fracture.
bone?
That's true. Well, I'm not gonna look into that too much. I mean, Jimmy Butler is a very competitive guy, and if he did say something like that, it's probably just because of his competitive fire, his desire for the Bulls to actually jump a level higher and win. We know that they had a very competitive series with Cleveland last year in the playoffs, and that probably just the remnants of losing that series, probably those still remain with Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler will be a very important piece for Chicago moving forward. They'll need that fire from him because he's going to be one of the big leaders of this team.
How do you think Derrick Rose will perform this season?
Well, you never know what you're going to get with Derrick Rose. I mean, there are a lot of people who think that every year he comes back, he's going to be an all-star. And that might be true, but this is a guy who has been banged up for the past handful of seasons. I don't think he'll ever be the same. I don't think he'll ever be the MVP Derrick Rose that we want him to be. But he's still going to be a very important player for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls, this is a team that's going to be anchored on Pau Gasol and Jimmy Butler this season. And Derrick Rose, at best for me, will be that number 3 scorer for them this season and beyond.
Dumako naman tayo dito sa Milwaukee Bucks, and Gretchen, I'm really excited. Among all the 5 teams dito sa Central Division, sa Milwaukee ako pinaka na-excite dahil kay Greg Monroe.
Oh, yeah,
At yung pagbabalik syempre ni Jabari Parker, do you think they're going to have a better season, and will they go deeper in the playoffs this year?
Well, the Milwaukee Bucks last season were known for their great defense, and medyo nagsaspotter sila on the offensive end. And that's addressed this season with the addition of Greg Monroe and the returning Jabari Parker, both of whom are known to be very, very explosive scorers. If Jason Kidd can retain that strong defensive identity of Milwaukee while at the same time incorporate the offensive gifts of Monroe and Jabari Parker, then that could mean that Milwaukee will jump one level higher, maybe even contend for a top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference.
Wow.
That's very, 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 very possible. But of course, there are a lot of factors that will go into that. Health, of course, is one. Jabari Parker was injured early last season. If he's healthy and if he develops well, who knows? He could be an all-star in a few years, diba? The thing with Greg Monroe is he's a very good offensive player, but defensively, some people think he's actually a liability. So how will Jason Kidd incorporate that into the Milwaukee system? We'll see.
Okay, punta naman tayo ngayon sa 4th team in the heap, ang Indiana Pacers. We all know that Paul George is the big deal when it comes to Indiana Pacers. His comeback, his return, and he says he's healthy to play the season. But what do you think about him transitioning to the power forward position?
Well, I'm not too confident about that. From the first time I saw Paul George play, he's always been a wing guy for me. Shooting guard, small forward, and aminin na natin, he's big at that position. He's about 6'9", playing guard forward. Ang laki nun, di ba? So it makes sense on paper to put him at power forward, especially when you look at the Pacers team. Wala nang malaki dyan masyado na magaling. Ha? Roy Hibbert, wala na. David West, wala na. Scola, wala na. Tinitingnan natin kanina yung mga big men nila, and maybe their most iconic big man is Jan Mahimi, who's not iconic by any stretch of the imagination. But ang may nabasa ako na si Paul George actually is not too excited to play power forward. So we'll see what the dynamics of that transition will be for the Pacers. Pero frankly speaking, I don't see them making the playoffs in the East this season.
Finally, we have the Detroit Pistons. We mentioned Greg Monroe, nasa Milwaukee na.
Yeah.
So that means the centerpiece is Andre Drummond. He will be the main man in the middle para sa Pistons. Of course, Brandon Jennings is coming off an injury, Achilles injury. And then a full season with point guard Reggie Jackson. Do you think Detroit will improve even with the absence, the departure, of Greg Monroe?
I'm excited for Andre Drummond. No? After the All-Star break last season, if I'm not mistaken, Detroit was pretty much playing 500 basketball, meaning they won as many games as they lost, which is a pretty good percentage in the NBA already. If they continue to do that this season, that could mean good things for them, maybe even challenge for a playoff spot. I'm excited about Drummond. I think he could be an all-star. I think he could maybe even make all-NBA third or second team if he's healthy and if he's used the right way by Coach Van Gundy. Ang medyo worry ko sa Detroit, yung dalawa nilang guardian, sinabi nga ni Anton, no? Brandon Jennings and Reggie Jackson, these are 2 guys who like to score and they like to have the basketball with them. So I'm not sure how willing they are to share the ball with each other. Yun yung medyo worry ko with this Detroit team.
Taking a look at all the teams, we've analyzed them one by one. Do you think that the Indiana Pacers could be the weakest team in this division?
I think it will still be Detroit. I think they still have a lot of holes in their lineup. Even if you add someone like Ursan Ilyasova or Danny Granger to the mix, they've added a few names, pero marami pa ring butas yan eh. And I think the Pacers, they have Paul George there, they have Monte Ellis, they have George Hill, by CJ Miles. I think they still have a little bit more than the Pistons do. So I think I'll rank Indiana maybe a little higher than Detroit. But definitely those two teams are far from the top 3 na Cleveland, Chicago, and Milwaukee.
Well, 7 days to go before opening day ng NBA, and we're very excited. Enzo, thank you so much for coming to the store. We'll see you at the UAP Games.
Oh, definitely. Thanks, guys.